So we have analyzed the achievements, the milestones, and success stories of India in international trade. So in today's session, we are going to discuss about emergence of international finance, the different institutions, and the construction of international finance overall. After this session, we are going to achieve understanding the global financial overview, how the international monetary system is there, how the international financial system is there, and how the international trade system is working. After this session, we have two more sessions for the unit one. One that is institutions in international finance, where we're talking about the four institutions that is credit rating agencies, IBRD, IDA, and IMF. So this way, we are going to finish the first unit of international finance. So it was a really pleasant experience that today for common session, the attendance was counted up to 72, which was now 50. So I'm very happy that first session, the attendance for mine will be more. And now let's continue the today's last session and understand the historical development and growth of international finance. When I say international finance, it basically talks about the money which flowing on international level, the money which has more than one denomination, the money which is crossing the international boundaries, and so forth and so on. So international market has a very serious concerns, issues, and portfolios which need to come across and understand. So when we talk about the international finance, it's a complex situation and market. So let's understand the overview of international finance. International monetary funds arrangements in theory and practice. We'll talk about the development of international market from 1879 to 1930, when we have something called as gold standard. Then we'll talk about the major overview about Bretton Woods Agreement 1945. We have the fixed rate dollar standard from 1950 to 1970, floating dollar standards from 1973 to 1984, and from 1985 to 1999, we have the Plaza and Roll interventions, which talks about the again floating rate. Then we have European monetary system in 1979. We have the Sprint European economic model that they started something called as European Union in 1999, and then we'll discuss about recent developments about these all dominance. So let's continue. I know that after you're working on OGT, it's very late to start with the sessions at 8 p.m. for international finance, but these are expected your key learnings, and you will be very beneficial when you're attending all the sessions. Because I'm very happy that most of the finance students has more than 75% attendance, and I'm expecting to maintain this and follow your learning habits. So let's begin this session. The international monetary arrangements or international monetary system is institutional framework where I have international payments, international movement of capital, and exchange rates or the currencies and how the currency valuation is done. So when I talk about international monetary system, it has payment gateways, payment system, it has movement of capital, and third, deciding the exchange rates. The first effort about international exchange rate was started way back, which we call as a gold standard. Now, this we more going to explain as the theories in unit 2, 3, 4. But let me introduce in short. In 1879, the gold standard was that if I am producing a currency to be traded, I need to maintain the gold reserves. So I produced $10. I should keep some gold in my bank because if the person want to return the money and he wants something in exchange, he at least can have that gold. So under gold standard, which is initial start at journey of international financial system, we have two theories, that is mean parity and basket theory. So this was the oldest system where we support the international currency with backbone of gold. If I'm issuing dollar, it is backbone is gold. I'm supporting the Indian rupee, the backbone is gold because if I want to exchange the currency, this currency is exchanged as gold. So countries elected unilaterally to follow the rule of gold standard, where the system was existed till the First World War in 1940. Earlier, along with dollar, the many currencies was traded, and after First World War, we started in 1914. It has outbreaks in emergencies and created an issue about gold reserves. Because when the First World War started, there was universal deposition and division of stock of gold, but the structure of world economics had changed after First World War. They were divided into two. One is Russian and second is American supporting nations. And this had changed to the convertibilities of currencies, and the gold standard instead of exact gold has switched towards the partial gold. Now, what was the gold standard? In gold standard, 1 cent is equal to 1 ounce. The people has to keep the reserves, or it can be in pound, it can be Australian dollar, it can be yuan, it can be Singapore dollar or something. The people has to keep the reserves as they are issuing the currency, and this currency were backed by the gold standard. For example, $30 price is equal to 1 ounce of gold, or if £6 is equal to 1 ounce of gold, then if I'm issuing $30, I need to maintain 1 ounce of gold. In clear picture, if I'm issuing 100 rupees, the value of 100 rupees equal to 1 kg of gold, then for every 100 rupees, I need to deposit 1 kg of gold. I just simply cannot ignore the price, and exact gold is need to maintain. This was very easy before First World War because before 1914 we have Dutch colonies, British colonies, French colonies, and these people are exploiting the natural resources in African, Asian, and Southeast Asian countries. So they got ample of resources. They got the variety of different source where they can take the gold. And These different sources was helpful for these people to follow and have the support of dollar to their exchange rates. So in the previous activities, the exchange rate was determined on how much gold or money power I'm having. More the gold rate, more the money power, more exchange I want to do it, I need a gold. So I cannot issue the currency if I don't have gold. So people used to follow the political methodology in which they have to maintain the gold reserves. And the reason was I was having colonies. I can take the gold from India, I can take the gold from Bangladesh, Myanmar, or African countries. And due to these colonies, the gold system was existed. In this period, from 1879 to 1913, the colonies were there. The system or approach the market has control by three or four major peoples like French, Germans, Dutch, British people, and partially by US. So whole countries now we have something around 218 countries. Now instead of 218 countries, they were approximately only major 49 countries, and other countries were the colonies of these eight people. So it was very effective and easy to have the this kind of exchange rate because I got a very good source of gold. Since the currency is backbone by the gold, the people has a larger confidence that if I have the currency note of US or I have currency note of Chinese yuan, I can simply exchange in gold. So I am benefited by exchanging into gold. I have advantage and support in the gold. Now, if you people just see the Indian currency note, there is a thin wire of gold. Sorry, silver. We are not doing gold. The thin wire of silver is there, and that will consider the cost of exchange in case of Indian rupees. But earlier, when it was 1879 to 1913, before outbreak of First World War, the everything is backed in equal gold. The misalignments, that is mismatch of exchange rate and international balance of payment, were automatically corrected by price specify flow mechanism. Now, what is this mechanism? As per this mechanism, if suppose currency of China is going high, it is more demanded, more people are using. Ultimately, China need to maintain the more and more gold reserves. So when the China is buying the gold reserves, the limitation of supply is there, and automatically the price of the currency declines because China is spending more in market. So China issuing more currency available, people demand less, again the gold required less, and that was automatically balanced. But here instead of balance, we are using the word misalignment. Now, why misalignment? Misalignment means the change in exchange rate or the change in available amount of forex. So it was being automatically corrected because we have a backbone of gold and we have a limitation about the backbone of gold because how much gold I can bear, how much gold I can contain, it is simply restricted towards the my capacity and I can only issue that many currencies which I have support with the gold. Now, what is price fees flow mechanism? Let's understand. Suppose the British are exporting from France and France is importing from Britain. Under the gold standard, the net export of goods is accompanied by net flow of gold. This flow of gold will lead to the lower price level in France and same time higher price in Britain. This results in relative price level and slow the exports of Great Britain and encourage the export from France. So let me explain this with illustration. Now, in this case, the Britain is exporting goods to the France, and France is importing from Britain. So we have B as a Britain who is supplying the goods to France, and France is paying back to Britain. Now, when the France has to make the payments, ultimately he has to issue the currency. When he has to issue the currency for payment to the Britain, he requires something is called gold. Now, when the gold is available with the France for generating the currency, his economy become more stable because his gold is out of the total reserves available globe and he is purchasing more. So the flow of gold will reduce the exchange rate of France, and for them importing from Britain will become very easy. But since the France currency is depleted, that is reduced, it will change the impact over British currency and British currency will become higher. For example, now there was a war between US and Iran. India has no direct role to play, but we are depend on them for our petroleum products. So when I was buying the petroleum products, I'm using American currency, that is dollar. So when the war started, US economy was disturbed. It was not so scheduled or not so particular about backpulling or guaranteeing the mechanism. So in that case, the US economy, they has to create the confidence in their exchange. So what they will do is they'll create more and more assurity that whatever happens, we will honor our currency. So they will start buying the gold. Once Americans go on buying the gold, ultimately they will have more pool of money because they have excessive gold. And this excessive gold will reduce the actual value of the exchange rate. So here, when the France is importing from Britain, then in that case, the price raise is specifically managed because when the payment are done by the France to Britain, at that time, the France required to also purchase gold because they are paying the foreign exchange. So when they start collecting gold, ultimately because of gold, they are having advantage of low currency. So one side I'm paying higher payments, one side I'm collecting gold. So that higher payments or higher exchange rate is automatically adjusted by gold. In simple words, suppose I want to pay somebody, I need to have gold reserves. When I need to have gold reserves, I start buying gold in lump sum. When I buy the gold in lump sum, then I have excessive power available. And in that excessive power, I can generate more and more currency. So when I generate more currency, the value of my currency, for example, it can be 40, will be reduced for 1 pound equal to 35 because I'm supplying more. So my value will be declined. And this way, the export for Britain will be slow because their price increase and import for the France will be the cross leading effect. Whereas because the price of France currency is declined, they have a benefit of cheap commodities and they can buy more and more things. So this is called price spice flow mechanism. In short, if I want to explain this mechanism, when I'm buying from somebody and I'm paying in terms of a third party currency, which is backbone by dollar. So in that case, it is observed that the system is auto balanced because relatively the price of golds is in high, and when the price of gold is high, it is more demanded, then depletion of the currency of importer will happens. When it is depleted, the importer country, sorry, the exporting country, they will get the more importing countries exchange, and ultimately his money will be flowed more. So the amount of money in market available will be large, and that will balance the misalignment in international trade. I'll just wait for 1 minute. Please read the slide. If any doubt, put in chat box. I think there is no doubt. So let's move further. In this golden period, we have find there was a stable exchange rates and common monetary policies because every country's currency is supported in gold. So how much gold I'm having and how many currency I can issue, that was deciding my exchange rates. So the powerful countries has powerful exchange rates. The underdeveloped or developing countries has a less exchange rates. So the gold commodity based exchange rates were prevailing before the First World War, which started in 1914. The gold standard ignored the real rate of interest, and it is only catered towards supporting transactions by quantity of goods. So when I talk about the influence or flow of domestic or the financial circulation of money in domestic country, it was not being honored. So why? Because of the colonies of nations, the matchmaking effects is done. For example, if the exchange rates are increasing, they will just go on more and more supplies to their colonies and collect the income by way of exports. So this way, they are able to manage their exchange rates. The gold standard, we have the support or backbone of particular gram or kg of gold when we're issuing the currency. So the issue of currency was minimal and only possible when I have enough capacity to support with the gold. So this was the era where we observed the standardized, controlled, and stable exchange rates, and the mechanism of price spices was managing the misleading effects or the losses automatically. Then, what are the shortcomings of gold standard? The first thing is backbone of gold. Gold is a precious metal. It is used in ornaments. It is used in some of the allopathic and homeopathic medicines. It is also used for decoration of various items. So I have a limitation for application of gold and maintaining its security. So The investment in gold was hampered due to the financial capacity, second, the cost of holding, and third, security concerns about maintaining this many quantity of gold. Even the gold standard is continued up to 1914, that is after First World War. There was always an issue about security and procuring the gold always. Because when I'm issuing the currency, when I always been depositing, keeping some gold, it will become practically impossible after a certain time to maintain that gold reserve with me. Because it's like something that if you're eating one spoon of a food, you're keeping 1 kg of gold, but you're eating daily. You require the funds daily. So if you require the fund daily, I cannot say just make the stock of gold, because if I'm making the stock of gold, I'm just keeping my idle money into reserves. And this reserve creation would make an impact over my financial shortfalls. How? Because I'm purchasing the gold and just keeping idle. I'm not creating any derivatives. I'm not uh, giving as hypothecation. Then assurity about my forex is maintained. But I being suffering for time loss of money which I may have invested, as well as I need to pay a higher cost for security and other concerns. So this was the greatest reason why the gold standard has failed. The money is an ultimate motivator for people to work. So if I want to motivate or pursue somebody to perform for me, I need to make him understand the facilitate of economic transactions and its effect over its personal achievements. So, what is the relation between money and growth? So, here I have M, what is represent money, and V represents velocity. Now, my dear friends, velocity is a speed, velocity is a movement which I achieve or which I enjoy during a business cycle. It meant to say that how the money is exchanging hands, moving from one person to other or one entity to other in a particular period, where PY is a spending habits which the people do in general. So if the sufficient money is available, people will do the spending on their personal needs and other needs. But if the sufficient money is not available, they will postpone the consumption or they will cancel the consumption. Now, postpone or cancel, in both the cases, the flow of money will be absoluted and the economic crisis will start. So, the growth and flow of money, they go hand in hand. If the flow and growth is increasing, ultimately the employment opportunities and trust in conversion ratio is built up. It will help to fetch and consider that if I have more money, I can have more velocity, then it will show the efficiency of my money and the transactions or economic exposures for my currency risk are less. So when there is a higher turnover of money or higher velocity of money, the growth is more and more achieved. Now, what happened after 1940s till 1941? Because we started the Second World War around 1943. During this period, when the First World War finished, approximately 40% of the colonies start demanding the freedoms. Sorry, 60% start demanding freedom, and 40% of the colonies are free because controlling them, there was lack of resources. For dealing the colonies, providing them infrastructure, providing the administrative powers, the some of the colonies were not feasible. So many Dutch and Portuguese, they withdraw their occupancy on other nations. So during the period of 1918 to 1941, we have witnessed the fluctuating exchange rates. What I mean by fluctuating exchange rate? Earlier, for each currency, I need to have deposits. But now, since the kind of availability gold is limited, because in First World War, we have disturbed the production of gold, supply chain of gold, and everything was required to have undergone a transit for creation of pool of supply. The German and their allies were enforced stringent rules and norms about their production, and they was charged with hectic fines. So that has impacted that region, and it ultimately created the more pull and push effects over the gold. So changes in gold market rates has effectively introduced and affected the exchange rate fluctuations. So the many countries in this period suffered the floating exchange rates because the price of gold and prices of the currency are predominantly decides about depreciation and international trade and commercial associations of different countries. The world was divided into capitalist and communist countries. So ultimately, this division has led to the duopoly control over the world flow of currency. We have also find in this period the political follow the rules game is observed, where the politics, the country which has a stronger gold reserves and backbone of a strong military, they used to have a facility of higher exchange rates because of their preserving gold amounts. This the disturbance and lack of the control has led to disrespectful trade on international level. What is disrespectful trade here? Disrespectful means not a personal respect or ego. Here it is called in terms of flow of money and deciding the exchange rates and managing the balance of payments. This is also considered as smooth always tariffs, and this is resulted in a Great Depression in UK. The economic performance and degree of exchange rate during this Great Depression was this way. On y-axis, we got industrial production, that is from the period of 1935, and we on x-axis the exchange rates. You can just see that the productions are high for Finland and low for the Germany and Italy and Netherlands because these are more suffered from war. So their exchange rates were high, but their productivity was completely less. Whereas the Norway and UK, they are aggressive funds. They are on the verge of average, even though their demands were more, but the exchange rate has happened an issue because the lack of gold reserves during the war. And we see the Finland and Sweden, which remains to be a static nations, they are benefited by higher industrial production because in these nations the impact of war was not disturb the economies in level of industries. Whereas UK, France, Germany, sorry, UK, France, Germany, Netherlands, and Italy, they were well affected over the industrial production capacity and they're facing the critical issues about international trade settlements. Let's move forward. The spirit of Bretton Woods Agreement 1945. So before 1945, The all countries which are dealing, they are just dealing in terms of gold. How much gold I'm keeping my backbone, and how much other country. We just need to equalize the rates, understand the differences, and this way we have to ascertain the price which I need to pay for other countries' currency. Then in 1945, we are introduced the spirit of Bretton Woods Agreement. Now let's understand what is the Bretton Woods Agreement. Now, in case of Bretton Woods Agreement, the countries have accepted a new policy. Instead of keeping 100% reservoir of gold, they decided intrinsic value of the exchange rate, and they agreed to rate of 1% at par value. So here the peg value from 100% has received to 1%. Now what this means? Suppose I issue the $100. In earlier case, the gold standard, I need to keep the equal reserve for $100. But now in Bretton Woods Agreement, when I want to issue the 100 rupees, I just required 1% gold to maintain. So the Bretton Woods Agreement first nullify the overstocking of kg of golds, and it advocates the free liberal exchange rate determination for many nations. The Bretton Woods Agreement is named for 1944 meetings of 44 nations at Bretton Woods in New Hampshire. So the basic purpose of the Bretton Woods Agreement was to eradicate the disturbances on international level due to effect of First and Second World War. These meetings were conducted between 44 nations to formulate a policy so that Germany and Japan and their alliance countries not being humiliated, because after First World War, when many restrictions were imposed on Germany, it was considered as humiliations, and that has emerged one of the reasons for Second World War. So they started a series of meetings at Bretton Woods. This meeting has outcome that whatever exchange rates we are deciding, that we are following as incorrect practice, and we should now, instead of maintaining the 100% reserves, we should just give a thought regards to maintaining a particular percentage or particular quantity in relation to the foreign currency issue. So in this pegging system, what is my exchange rate and how much I need to maintain the gold is decided by these 44 nations countries. The purpose of this system is to restructure the post-war international monetary system to give an booster dose to an global trade and activities to support and motivate more and more contribution and more turning around of international events and remove the regional imbalances about trade effects and exchange rates. These meetings are basic oriented in creation of cartels and agreements where two nations are agreed for their inco-eco terms to have bilateral benefits for mutually. The Bretton Woods systems advocate that instead of 100%, you denominate the percentage which you are maintaining. As per this agreement, the member nations should not issue more than 9% gold reservoir for currency. It has to be as lowest as possible. Secondly, as per this agreement, the exchange rate stability without gold is impractical. Now, to be note very clearly, the Bretton Woods Agreement is a liberal approach towards international market. This liberal approach has resulted in more and more contributions, more and more trade activities, and more exchange rate stability. The gold rates were standard in initial phases. Later on, when the price fluctuation happened, the people's buying effect of gold is again enlightened, and that has resulted into emergence of certain mechanisms, what we call as the international financial agencies, like International Monetary Fund and World Bank. So Bretton Woods system discussions has emerged the three major organizations which operates on global level, that is World Bank, IMF, and IRTA. Now, what was the Bretton Woods agreements? As per Bretton Woods agreement, the US dollar will fix its exchange rate with the gold. Instead of each currency fixing its exchange rate, the gold was accepted as benchmark, and based on the price of exchange rate for $1, how much is gold and how much the other country's gold, these two things are matched. For example, I am paying 35 rupees for $1 and plus or minus 1% can be the change. If I want exchange from dollar to rupees, I need to decide about buying and settlement powers. And on these powers of buying and settlements, I can decide the exchange rate. Here, the many nations were in phase of restructuring after Second World War, and US was the only country which was not involved directly in war. They have the aggregation and allegations about port trust and other things, but they are suffered a setback because their factories are disturbed, the welfare facilities are disturbed, and these issues prevail, and they were a greater challenge on international market. So the Japan has attacked the military base of US, but beyond this extension, no other war country has directly attacked US economy. So US economy was protected, and this resulted in rapid growth after World War II. Because after Second World War, that is 41 to 43 major, and the cool down period or the setback of Japan from 43 to 44, the British economy was flourishing. So they had stock of gold. Other nations, they are not able to maintain the gold reserve because during war, the theft, the burglaries, and securities were the major concerns. And in this Bretton Woods agreement, they peg the country, sorry, US country's dollar as 35 per ounce. They need to maintain the gold. The US was made as central depository place where they will keep the reserves and issue the dollars. And these dollars were considered as a benchmark for exchanging the other country's currency. For example, if India want to export to France, then India to dollar rate is 10. Suppose India want to export to France, the Indian currency rate to dollar is 1 as to 10. The France has 1 as to 20. So $1 is converted into twice France. So we have to compare this ratio, and then my exchange rate will be 1 as to 2. So for each 1 Indian rupee, the value of France is 2. It means 1 France currency will have been 2 Indian rupees. And this system was called as dollar-based gold exchange standard and famously recognized as Bretton Woods system. I'll wait for 1 minute. If any doubt, you can post in chat box or unmute and ask it. I guess no doubts. So let me revise again the Bretton Woods system. After First World War, the ceasefire was disturbed from 1943 to 1945, where we have find the global economic changes were happening. Many nations has got setback of war. They have lack of the production facilities and they're suffering about exchanging or maintaining the gold reserves for their currency. US was the only economy which is not affected by the First and Second World War, and that's the reason they were growing stable. So in Bretton Woods, we have considered the US to run as majors responsible for gold parity. Now, each country, instead of maintaining gold, they can maintain the balance of dollars and accordingly deviate or calculate the exchange rates. So here, instead of gold, dollar become a benchmark to decide what will be the exchange rate. So as per Bretton Woods agreement, the dollars and sterlings they are interchangeably considered to decide exchange rate because the dollar is backbone by one or plus or minus one percentage of gold support. So it considered as benchmark currency to decide the price rates. Then after 1945 till 1972, we has got something called as fixed rate dollar standard. Now in this fixed rate dollar standard, what happened is each country has fixed its exchange rates against the dollar, and when they are trading, they ignore the concurrent effect, they ignore the current moment, and they ignore the current happening, which may result in plus or minus the exchange rates. Under fixed rate dollar standards, the companies will have a fixed rate of exchange against dollar, and after bargains, I can decide how much dollars are receivable or paid for each purchase or sale of items. So in fixed rate system, the gold standard, the US economy will maintain at 1% at par value, and this 1% currency will be indirectly influencing the interest of other nations at fixed value. Suppose it's at $3 per ounce, then this rate will be fixed for other countries. They cannot change this. In fixed rate dollar standard from 1945 to 1972, The Britain remains passive in foreign exchange market. They were more interest for free trade without balance of payment or exchange rate when we got our freedom. Why they were very keen about free trade without the balance of payment on exchange rate was because due to the First and Second World War, the majority colonies were given the freedom to their local states or nations. That has resulted in emergence of various states. This emergence of various states has helped for wealth creation as well as for bringing the standardization in international exchange. I'll wait for 1 minute. Please read the slide. Let's now move further. How is Bretton Woods system works? So this is an example. Here you see the 0.35 paisa, sorry, 35 ounce per dollar. I need to maintain the reserves. So this was a major rule for US for issuing dollars. In this case, the dollar is replaced by US dollar for getting in conference and deciding the exchange rates. So I want $10, $15 or $30. The exchange rate is exchanged based on the price. For example, I'm exporting to the European Union and rate of euro to dollar is 5. Rate of dollar to the Indian rupee is 50. So I have to understand the mathematical legacy and find out the average rate based on dollar rate. So it is 5 as to 50, 1 as to 10. So one currency will be equal to 10 currencies of other nation, and so forth and so on. So the Bretton Woods Agreement tried to replace the quantity of gold with the intermediary, that is US dollar. They are advocating that instead of maintaining the gold reserves, everybody, then the availability of gold is challenged and it will be exploited for more unsecured market. And this may result in crime and black marketing. And so they have shifted the focus of gold reserves. They suggested if the person is taking lead role, he should withhold with him the different bank deposits and based on that, the exchange rates with other countries. So we are done with the major exchange rates. It's about 9 p.m. So let's conclude. The international monetary system has a longer history, started from 1879, where it started as global references. It has emerged as international facilitators, which further converted as gold standard, Bretton Woods standards, and multi-fox level convertibility. The last is out of syllabus, so I'm not teaching that. We'll continue till Bretton Woods Agreement. In Bretton Woods Agreement, the first time the definitions of various activities, the reciprocates and documents were studied. So these all institutions and all benchmarks of emerging a country and its forex has created a stronger role in international market. So that's all for today. Enjoy your remaining quality time and thank you for joining the session. Now you all of you can log out.